Welcome to Viseland, Mikey. What is going on this week?
Well, let's just talk about what's gone on the last week, and that's the NBA Finals.
True.
Our last episode, we were predicting the NBA Finals. We still could both be right, but yeah. What did you think of tonight's game? Tonight was Game 4, and the Lakers are officially up 3-1. Sorry if I ruined it for you, but it happened. So yeah.
Well, at this point, you're listening to it, and we come out on Wednesday. So at this point, if you didn't know the score, you're really behind on a lot. No, to me, like
you live under a rock.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. Like Jimmy, isn't a 3-point threat. And I feel like it was all in those last few minutes, like once bam, and they couldn't like get that shot off at the shot clock, and they had that like shot clock violation. I knew the game was like turned at that.
That was a killer. About Jimmy not being a 3-point threat.
No,
I just kind of wondered. Yeah, like
he doesn't
shoot a lot of them. Yeah, he doesn't shoot a lot of them.
But in those situations where you kind of might want that as like an additional threat,
I'd always felt like Jimmy got like a little bit better from there. But yeah, like the way the Lakers were kind of, first off, Anthony Davis covering him most of the game did a very good job. Especially that last block was incredible. And this was a great Anthony Davis defensive performance.
And he hit the clutch, at that three.
He hit the clutch three also.
Totally sealed.
Yeah, the guy can play basketball pretty well.
Yeah.
Coming off a rather rough Game 3, whereas Jimmy played the best game of the NBA Finals so far was played by Jimmy Butler in Game 3.
Yeah.
And it was, I believe, the first time ever that LeBron had been outscored, out-rebounded, and out-assisted in the same game by somebody else. That was impressive. Yeah, so Jimmy's Game 3, incredible performance. The Heat flat out outplayed them. This game, they decide to give Jimmy the jump shot and give Jimmy the Jimmy, let's say. And it just wasn't really working for them. Bam Adebayo comes back. I felt he had a pretty admirable performance as well, with 6 of 8 shooting. The Heat got to the free throw line more than the Lakers. It was
until the end of the game, though.
For sure. Well, yeah, but the disparity by that point was pretty wide. And then
the game.
At the end, the Heat get there 26 times, Lakers get there 21. And let's be real, the Lakers weren't shooting very well until the very end of the game, and then they were attacking the basket.
And then
they went right at Duncan Robinson on a few plays. And by the way, Duncan Robinson can shoot the hell out of the basketball.
But when
Tyler
LeBron gets that
his best game of the finals.
Switch,
what were you saying?
When LeBron gets Duncan Robinson on switching on to him, LeBron gets like a smile on his face.
Oh man, well yeah, on offense, yeah. Well, the thing was that the 2 crucial baskets were scored by Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Rajon Rondo when they were switched on to Duncan Robinson. And yeah, like that Duncan Robinson bank shot the last one that he made was crazy. Like you were saying, that Bam Adebayo one was after the clock, but that was after the clock,
and then I think that just like derailed their momentum. And like I felt like from that point on, like they didn't really have like a solid offensive agenda to like really like get the baskets to like make this game a little bit more competitive. So it'd be interesting because like I think Goran is like he's done. He's not coming.
Yeah, well, it seemed like he tried to come back and it was just too painful.
Yeah, it's just too painful. Like so that's not gonna happen. I think like Bam will hopefully have a little more confidence, but balls in the Lakers court, and again, like the Lakers had one of their classic like terrible performances from a lot of the other people not named like LeBron James or Anthony Davis for a lot of the game, and then like KCP came up at the end, but overall
KCP had a great first quarter as well.
Yeah, and like he was good this game, but he hasn't been as consistent throughout. Rondo didn't shoot it a ton today, but it's like if they just get again like 70% from the rest of those guys.
I thought starting Markieff Morris was a great idea in the second half.
Yeah.
I like that. I feel like lineups with Keefe have generally been better. And yeah, it just doesn't seem like Dwight is necessarily doing much for them as far as creating an advantage. The Lakers narrowly out-rebounded them this game, whereas last game they were out-rebounded by the Heat. Still turnover issues with the Lakers, for sure. But they clamped that down, and yeah, it was a really close game.
And you see LeBron's sort of like passion / like anger level getting to a pretty high. Like I don't.
He didn't have a good first half.
No, but I don't know what it's like to be in the locker room with him. But I'm guessing he's not saying a lot of pleasant things to you, so he's kind of motivating you to perform better in the next game. Because like he always looks like he's on the brink of just like completely having a mental breakdown.
Well, after Kuzma made that one pass that Jimmy just completely intercepted, LeBron did look like he was going to lose.
Kuzma makes up for that like a few plays later.
He did. That next play, he makes the corner three.
But yeah,
he didn't have like it wasn't a terrible game by him. Like nobody really scapegoat in this game for either team. I guess like the Heat just at the end give up a few defensive possessions, but. Yeah, it was well played by both teams.
Executing offensively, like was just like the Heat were just getting a little more.
The first two games were very Laker centric. Last game, the Heat I felt kind of ran the show for pretty much the whole thing, and this game it was really really close, and I felt the Lakers just kind of made that little stretch at the end of the fourth quarter, hitting some shots, playing some really good defense, making some great rotations, and this has been it's been a pretty fun series. Like I know, obviously, the worst thing about it was the Heat getting those two injuries to Goran Dragic and Bam Adebayo, and like that's a bummer. You never want to see that happen to any player on any team. But yeah, it just that definitely tilted the series as well. I didn't really tilt. I feel that game one, like the Lakers were just kind of.
Oh, it was already kind of done. Yeah, like the Lakers were.
Yeah, it definitely that has to play a huge impact on the series. Certain guys have gotten minutes that might not have otherwise. Surprisingly enough, Myers Leonard has not been like a giant negative, and actually like played pretty well in the little minutes that he did play. Kelly Olynyk has been a huge offensive factor, and like he's a good backup center. Like he really is. And it was great to have Bam back out there, and he started off with like a flurry. Just that second half was a big time performance by LeBron James and Anthony Davis.
No, totally. And
the other guys making some key shots as well.
Miami had some good momentum plays too. Earlier, like Tyler Hero had that one where he just like arced it over Anthony Davis. Like
that was like
really good shot. Awesome, but yeah, they just
and he's such a great like Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero are so great off of movement, and that can be really tough to defend. Like Hero made a few great movement jumpers. Duncan Robinson this was finally his big offensive game, or it was both of their best games offensively so far. Hero he's another guy who I think defensively they kind of pick on him as well.
And are you still sticking with your original prediction of Lakers in 5?
Yes, I am. Why in the fuck would I go back on it?
You can't go back.
Are you still sticking with yours?
I said Lakers in 6. I have been kind of secretly cheering for the Heat. I'm not gonna lie, just because I don't know. Like sometimes I want to see like a little anarchy. But I still think Lakers in 6. I'm gonna give Miami one more game. Like I think they're gonna come out.
You should take down that jersey, by the way. Jesus.
I still think that
obviously I'm a big fan of LeBron James, who is on my shirt. This was a shirt I haven't worn in quite a while, and it's kind of fading, but it's a pretty great one of him.
I still like the Lakers.
St. Vincent St. Mary.
The odds-on team to win. Like if I was gambling, I would gamble on the Lakers, but I don't know. I just kind of want to see more basketball too. Because
you want to gamble? Let's. I'm down to gamble on the Lakers right now.
I'm not gonna gamble in real life here, but if I were, I would have gambled on the Lakers. But my thing is like, we don't know when we're gonna get basketball again. Like hopefully the NBA will have a decent turnaround. Like they say Christmas.
Yeah.
January. Like are they, like. Yeah, I don't know when the next games are going to be. So it's like I might as well see as much. And also there's like rumors this week. If they have to go into the summer, they're not gonna take on an Olympic break. So like Olympic basketballs. Like there's like a lot of things. Like
I'm beyond that. I at this point, as nice as it like in a perfect world, it would be great to see Olympic basketball and see all the best players play against each other. Like I don't think. First off, I don't know if the players get paid for it. I don't think they do.
No, and
I think it's gotten pretty ridiculous.
A lot of the teams don't like it either because they're going out there playing and then
and there's a risk of injury. Well, and that is again like them kind of being selfish as opposed to like being for the players. But yeah,
of course, obviously you're an owner, but which is obviously like a terrible term for people with.
Well, don't you think, like, didn't they want it to be, like, governor? Like, that's, like, even worse.
Yeah, I know, master, wasn't it?
Master, yeah, exactly.
But yeah. Like,
hey, Keith Raniere is up for the new NBA commissioner.
I mean, yeah. NFL is definitely more in his wheelhouse, probably, but.
Yeah. Well, he does kind of like the more, like, S&M type stuff, so, yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know when the NBA is going to come. I mean, I know the NBA is going to come back because I think they've done a good job of doing what they do. Like I was just watching this thing about the chefs in the bubble and how there's like 2 separate bubbles, like one for the players and then there's one for like auxiliary staff, like chefs or whatever. And it's like they prepare the food, they take the food, they give it to a runner. A runner takes it up to the border because you can't cross between the two. Yeah, like you can't cross between the 2 bubbles. So they take it like up to this like border point. It's a very Berlin Wall, but like they take it up to this border point and then someone takes it from that border into the player. So it's like this whole process of like how they do like, but it seems like they have it all very well worked out, figured out.
Yeah. Hey, I personally, I would be completely down to be in the bubble right now. I don't have a lot going on.
I don't either, to be honest.
I have a few things. Well, you at least have a son. And
he would come to the bubble with me. But other than that, we're not going. Like we don't.
You wouldn't bring Andrew to the bubble.
It's in Disney. It's the happiest place on earth.
Yeah, they're not going to Disney World.
But it's like
LeBron doesn't want his kids there because there's nothing to do like that.
They make the little waffle things, like with the Mickey Mouse, and like they still do all that. I've seen.
Oh yeah. Well, some people's kids went there, and like they're on their tablets the whole time, and really having the time of their life.
Oh no, Deuce Tatum was like notorious for being on his tablet, like during like the most crucial.
Love it. Yeah.
His father's hitting like big threes, and he's like.
Yeah. Oh man, I big up for Deuce. Like the fact that he was there and didn't like lose his shit.
Like a little kid, like I don't know how much I would have done either.
Oh my god! If I were a little kid there, I would have run onto the court. I would have been a complete idiot.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure.
A person, I would cherish that opportunity.
I would not be a very fun person to have at the bubble if I were Deuce Tatum's age. So I have to give him a lot of props. Let's move on. You're thinking ahead. That's the key.
Yeah.
And this week on Viseland, we're thinking ahead. And we are going to talk about a few 2021 NBA draft prospects. It's pretty much going to be something where I've gone to the Hoop Summit for the last 8 years and covered the Hoop Summit. I covered it for NBADraft.net. I've covered it for the Stepien. I was planning on doing it for Inside Carolina this year. And there are 3 North Carolina guys on Team USA.
And something
what we're going to talk about.
Something happened, like
yeah.
It's not like a Hoop Summit.
Unfortunately, there was no Nike Hoop Summit this year, as many events were canceled.
Yeah,
the whole high school All-Star circuit was canceled, which means that most people don't have much ammunition for the 2021 NBA draft and who was rising up and who was.
Yeah, this is a good place. Like, it's a good opportunity for these kids to build legend, build a little bit of get. Like interest, it's like
I think it's just fun. Like that's the other thing. It's fun. It's bonding. These guys have been through so many things with each other so far and been to all these events together. But it's just another and it's an achievement. That's the other thing. Like it's an achievement, and it's a week that you kind of just dream of, and you're with your buddies. You're playing in this game on national television. It's too bad that
as someone who's into like gear and apparel, like I still hope they get the items. Like I still
they sent these guys as far as McDonald's stuff. Like first off, if you go to a USA basketball thing, which I'm pretty sure all of these guys have been to before, they give you tons of gear. And
that's different. But I'm talking McDonald's All American.
McDonald's gave them like a whole box of stuff. Yeah, like they sent out McDonald's boxes like full of gear and full of stuff. So I remember they were still compensated gear wise.
I remember back in my day.
And they still have the achievement. They just, unfortunately, playing the game is like that's for the players. Like, you know, like our friend Jeff Schwartz said, like the best thing about being an Oregon football player was the game.
Yeah.
And
Malik Harrison, my old neighbor in the dorms at University of Oregon, was a McDonald's All-American, and it was cool seeing those McDonald's All-American shorts because, you know, the only way to get them was to make the team. And
I think you can buy them, but, you know, whatever. Sure.
In 2004, you probably could.
To deserve them is to make the team.
Yeah, that's true. And also, that's the only reason you'd want to represent McDonald's, I guess, as well. But, like,
I think a lot of people love the history of the McDonald's All-American game. There have been a lot of great players through there. There have also been a lot of great players through the Hoop Summit, and I don't know how we got off onto this tangent. You were talking about gear. But anyway.
Back to the Nike Hoop Summit. So for those who don't know about the Nike Hoop Summit, because there might be some people out there.
Yes. The Nike Hoop Summit is a fun event, and it is it's basically a high school all-star game, but it's a little more than that. There's a little more at stake. In that it's 12 of the way I always explain it, 12 of the best players under 19 from all over the world go up against 12 players from our U.S. high school seniors. And this year they announced the 12 U.S. high school seniors. They announced a couple players that were going to be on the world team, but they didn't announce the full roster, unfortunately. So we wouldn't have known. But what we're going to do is we're going to go over the USA team for the Nike Hoop Summit. It's going to contain a lot of possible NBA draft picks. It is going to also have a few guys who are going to be, you know, on your favorite college teams for a few years possibly as well. We're going to go over them, kind of what people would have seen during the game and what they would have seen during practices. Give a few guys who didn't make the team and kind of do that at the end and talk about them as well. A couple guys who were top high school players that were left off the team. And then the other thing that we're going to do is give like a little rundown of maybe a couple guys who would have. So yeah, but the main.
It looks like we're having a little
summit this year. Box. Basically through through words, through speech. You ready to do that, Jason? You look tentative.
No, I just had a little hiccup on my internet, which is always my favorite part of the world. Is my good friends at Spectrum, who are really shitty at giving you the internet, but very good about charging you for it.
Yeah. Well, my whole spiel. But basically, to run it down very quickly, we're going to go over the Team USA at what would have been Team USA at the 2020 Nike Hoop Summit, still up on the USA Basketball website. Going to run down them as prospects, where they're going to school, their measurements, the whole deal. So you'll have a good idea of 12 prospects for Team USA. Give a couple guys who were left off the team running to make it, and then we're going to give a couple guys who were on the world team who might have been playing against if the 2020 Nike Hoop Summit had happened.
Sweet. Let's do it. I know starting off, we're going to go with someone who's ranked, pretty much ESPN ranks him number 2. Everyone else pretty much number 1 in the RCI. We're going with Cade Cunningham.
So ESPN recruiting ranks him number 2. ESPN draft number 1, like everybody else. And Cade Cunningham is going. First off, he's going to Oklahoma State.
How did he get there?
So give a little rundown. Or what?
Oh, how did he get there? Is it like his brother like an assistant coach or something?
Yeah, he was. But, and the thing was, Cannon was also an assistant coach at SMU, so he's a legit assistant coach.
No.
Yes, obviously, it was a draw to go to Oklahoma State, and it's pretty great that Oklahoma State put themselves in a position to get a year of Cade Cunningham service. They still have that postseason ban, I believe. I don't think that's been overturned yet. And it was just like, screw it, I'm going to play there anyway. For those that don't know, Oklahoma State, for past recruiting violations, have this postseason ban. We hope it gets overturned. We never expect the NCAA to do the right thing, but hopefully it would be really nice if Cade Cunningham gets them in a position to make an NCAA tournament run. But if not, there have been a couple past number one picks, including somebody in the running for number one pick this year who did not or would not have made the NCAA tournament. So yeah, either way, we're going to get a few games of Cade Cunningham in college, which is good enough. Cade is listed on the Oklahoma State website at 6'8" and 220 pounds. I still believe he's 6'7", and Oklahoma State is doing what many colleges do, and they're rounding it up an inch. But either way, Cade Cunningham has fantastic size. He has at least like a +5 or 6 wingspan as well. His wingspan is, I believe, 7 1/4 is 7'1". He is a point guard. Like that's the thing with Cade Cunningham. Like the statistics that this guy is putting up and his style of play are incredibly exciting. And the honest comparison that gets thrown around with Cade more than anything is people see him having a similar style to possibly what Luka Doncic has done early on in the NBA.
That's some pretty high praise. Like
indeed.
What have your thoughts been on times that you've seen him?
Oh, what?
What have your thoughts been on the times that you've seen him?
I think that he is, he first off, I got to see him at the 2018 October minicamp. I didn't get to see too much of him, unfortunately, but what I did see is just great strength, athleticism. His passing ability is like second to none in this class. He makes some fantastic reads, can pass with either hand. He is a really good defender as well, and just great instincts. He has a fantastic basketball IQ. They say a lot of they're always, it gets thrown around that like a 6'7" guy is a point guard. This guy is really he can play. He has versatility, and he'll guard a number of different positions. He probably won't guard point guards. The thing with him too is he can guard one of your better wing players on the other team as well. So his potential on both ends of the floor is pretty immense. He also has shooting potential too. So it's not like he's a knockdown shooter yet, but there were signs that he could definitely shoot. And it seemed like he was the best player in the EYBL last year. His averages, these are just raw averages that I have from EYBL. 23.8 points per game on 59% from the field, 35% from three, and 73.7% from the line. 7 rebounds, 5.7 assists to 2.9 turnovers per game. So almost a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, a little over steal per game, and almost a block per game.
And he's also a reason that people look forward to 2021 draft more than the 20.
Absolutely. Well, and the thing with Cade that I was guiltily hoping this for the 2020 draft. He's born September 25th, 2001. So while he's the correct age for class, I guess he'd be it's supposed to be one of the older people in that class, but he's a fine age for class. He could have reclassified and been the youngest college guy in this draft. And I think that would have been really cool if that would have happened. He's been at Montverde for the last 2 years. He's run the show there. This year they were the dumbest high school team I've ever seen. They, I believe, went 25-0. He won almost every major high school player of the year award.
They got the Naismith. I know that.
Yeah, and his averages were nothing out of this world. But I think he still led the team in scoring, around close to 7 rebounds per game, close to 7 assists per game, just ridiculous. And then he has another couple teammates that are on this team, and another teammate who's a fantastic player and possible one-and-done candidate, and was in the running, I believe, to make the Hoop Summit team as well. But yeah, I guess they could only take 3 guys from Montverde. So yeah, Cade is he is, I think, far and away the odds-on favorite to be the number 1 pick in this draft, and is the cream of this high school crop. He just his ability to possibly be your primary initiator. I know that with Evan Mobley being big, with Jalen Green being a fantastic athlete and having volume shooting potential. And then Jonathan Kuminga was a late reclass. He might have been on the world team for the Hoop Summit, but he's apparently younger. I'm not so sure, but he's from Congo, and he's whatever it is. He's a fantastic athlete. He actually had a game in EYBL where he was definitely the guy who had the most dominant performance against Cade Cunningham. I believe he had somewhere in the 40-point range and made 7 3-pointers, but he's not necessarily doing that every game, and shooting is still a concern for him. But yeah, a fantastic athlete with a very strong body as well. But yeah, Cade is strong. He, not like an out of this world athlete, but still a really good athlete. If there's things that he can improve on, it would be like, I want to see him. He showed in EYBL he can be a volume scorer, but you'd like to see what he does at Oklahoma State as far as that's concerned. He didn't really have to do that at Montverde, as they won every game handily. And even when they were in like a close game, they had so many guys to rely on. And then, I guess there are some ways to improve his athleticism, but just as far as a prospect, a lot of people who are more recent to following the NBA draft and didn't necessarily see the guy on my shirt, LeBron James, think the Cade is like this prospect who really has a huge lack of weaknesses.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice to have that excitement already for 2021 and just
yeah. And the thing I'll say about 2021, I'm lucky enough where I've gotten to see 3 years of a lot of prospects in this class, and I love this class. I like them as prospects. I like them as people. There's a lot to like about this class. I think they're going to be a much more fun freshman group. It's unfortunate this season is likely going to be a little shorter than it would have been otherwise. But yeah, I'm really excited for this class. And it's not that the other class didn't have some great prospects, and it certainly has a lot of question marks, and there's nothing straight up about this past draft class, the 2020 NBA draft, but 2021 I think is a draft that I'm just really looking forward to, and it just seems like 2020 has gone on forever, and it has.
That draft comes soon enough. But moving on, we have someone, you talked about college. We have someone not going to college. Taking another opportunity. ESPN has him as the number 1, so not Cade Cunningham, but they have him number 2 everywhere else. It's going to be Jalen.
ESPN's the only one. As far as
I guess ESPN feels there's a difference between the recruit and the draft, which doesn't make sense because I think they're kind of one in.
Well, they have one person running recruiting, and their job is supposed to be going and seeing the recruits, and then they have the ESPN guys, Mike Schmitz and Jonathan Givony, and they have some slightly different opinions. They talk to different people.
Well, yeah, they're what the NBA wants, and
yeah. I mean, it's not like Paul Biancardi doesn't have a system and doesn't talk to those people as well. The buck stops with 2 different departments, and for whatever reason, the ESPN guys aren't necessarily just focused on those guys. They have to focus on college as well, and there's a lot more to it. But yeah, I usually feel if you're looking for NBA draft opinions, I would probably go to the guys that deal with the NBA draft.
So Jalen Green, he's gonna take the route. He's gonna go with the G League's professional pathway, which sounded super promising. But now we don't know what direction it's fully gonna go in, but hopefully presents him with a good opportunity. Obviously, we don't know how it's going to play out now, but I mean.
Well, we have some ideas. So what is tentatively happening is they apparently want to do a bubble tournament with these guys. So we don't know exactly how the rest of the roster filled out. The team is Jalen Green, who is, I guess, kind of the star guy. The other star guy is Jonathan Kuminga. They have Daishin Nix, Isaiah Todd, who's been at a lot of USA basketball camps as well. Kai Soto, who's from the Philippines, but played this last year at the Skill Factory in Georgia. And then Principal Singh, who is from India. And so those are the 6 guys that the Ignite have right now, apparently coached by Brian Shaw. So they're coming up with games. They were never going to play a ton of games.
No, I know it's more about like training, coaching versus like full out games, which is totally fine, because I think, again, you're getting it at that professional level from guys that are preparing you for what the NBA is going to be like. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Jalen Green as far as what he would have done at the Hoop Summit, kind of like as a prospect?
He's a very explosive scorer. He's a great athlete. So he's the guy who, when I initially went like that first year, he was a standout just because he has this tremendous first step. Has great balance, the ability to hit outside shots in high volume. He still isn't necessarily super consistent from there, and he's not like a 40% three-point shooter, but he improved a lot during the high school season and had a few games where he just made buckets. So yeah, he sounds out immediately because of his athleticism. I felt like he really improved his handle over the years. It's still not necessarily a huge strength of his, but he has some ability to get his own shot and to create some space. But yeah, he can score in bunches. And I believe during the U17s, in 2018, he was the MVP. During this last year in the U19s, he was more kind of like a microwave, like bench scorer kind of guy for that team. And Cade kind of took the mantle there. He initially started off the EYBL season playing for the Oakland Soldiers. He did it for one weekend and then played for Team Why Not. Team Why Not did come in second in the Nike Peach Jam to Mocan Elite. And so he was on a winning EYBL team. His EYBL numbers were 18.2 points per game. He was about 30-ish like three-point percentage shooter, 75.2% from the free throw line, 4 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 2.2 turnovers per game. So the thing you notice there immediately is Cade has this like 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, and Jalen Green not necessarily the same. And then as far as shooting in the EYBL, I didn't feel like there was a huge difference between that of Cade Cunningham and Jalen Green other than volume. But yeah, like it just seems like Jalen Green during his high school season took on this huge scoring load.
He set the single season record of prolific prep.
Yeah.
In the first season. Like that's pretty, it's pretty.
For sure. They've had some really good players come through there. And he was playing with Namari Burnett, who's also a really good player. So yeah, like Jalen Green, certainly he is, I think, a prospect that you're very excited about. I thought that there was a chance he might go to Australia. And to me, the kind of argument in the beginning was between RJ Hampton and Jalen Green that first year that I went to October minicamp. And I much preferred Green, who's like a full year younger. Jalen Green, born February 9th, 2002. His measurements, like approximately, it's been a while since I've gotten really good ones for him, but it's about 6'5". I'm guessing 180 pounds. So strength is still another thing that is, to me, a big separation between he and Cade Cunningham, though he does a really good job of taking contact as well. And then a 6'7" and a half.
The G League pathway, I think like that'll be hopefully, addressed.
Yeah, something. Oh, for sure. But also, like, I think that's just part of his frame as well. Like, it seems like he's had a tough time adding weight, and he's been around this general weight for quite a while. If he was at 180, it would be a new thing.
But it's also different when you're professional versus when you're pretending to go to school.
I guess.
Like those professional nutritionists and weight programs. It's hard pretending to go to class every once in a while.
Yeah. So yeah, and so he can finish explosively around the basket as well. He gets to the free throw line quite a bit, so it's not like his lack of frame like necessarily prohibits him there. Like he's been pretty good at getting to the line and taking contact. And He's still a very exciting player to me. There's some really special athleticism there. He's most likely the most popular player, or at least around there in this high school class. There are still a lot of people that kind of lean back to him being number one initially, and he put himself in the thick of things, and there are definitely things to be excited about in terms of him being a potential volume shooter and scorer. And I think some people are just kind of think he's the more athletic between he and Cade, but don't factor in the 30 to 40 pound strength advantage,
and also playing
the length advantage, the decision making advantage. Those are big things. And there are some people that kind of wonder if he's necessarily going to hold on to this presumed number 2 spot because he was number 2 in the RSCI. I still think he's a very good prospect, but I would have him firmly outside of the number 1 pick discussion because I feel like Cade Cunningham. I would just be very surprised if Cade Cunningham wasn't the number 1 pick in the draft. I would have to think it would either be injury or some unforeseen reason, because I don't necessarily see Jalen Green being that level of primary initiator. He, I think, is going to be a good volume scorer, but the fact that you can run a complete offense through Cade Cunningham with that size and strength, I think is a huge advantage there. And I'm just not so sure, other than the kind of 2-foot pop, what Jalen Green does that is markedly better than a guy like Cade Cunningham.
Well, I think G League pathway can help him, on shooting or strength or things like that. But yeah, decision making ability is going to be hard to see. Where I think Cade Cunningham is also going to get to put that on display.
30 to 40 pounds of strength. That G League pathway.
No. I mean, not. But I mean,
that's a physical impossibility.
You can put on. You can improve your strength. You can improve.
Yeah. Oh, certainly.
I can't show you that remarkably the decision making is improved when you're not really seeing it in tense 5-on-5 games. Yeah. You'll see in the Big 12 versus. So it's just an interesting thing, but I think he'll still be in the discussion at the lottery. At that point, it's just we don't know what the evaluation period is going to be like next year as well either. Just guys who, because again, have we seen most of them in high school a lot? Are we going to get to see a good chance of them in college, or how is that going to play out? So it could just be a very different draft next year. That could be kind of living based off of these high school kind of projections.
Well, I think we're at the point where we're at least assuming that we're going to get to see these guys play in a few games.
Yeah, hopefully, but yeah,
it seems like they're taking the necessary steps for that to happen.
Because I think one of the tournaments that Oregon was going to play and just got pulled back, but it was a who cares classic, but it's not happening.
Yeah, well, they announced that November 25th is the tentative start date for the season, and they should play a few games. And either way, I think that there's still a lot of footage on these guys. And Jalen Green's played 3 years of USA basketball. He's played, you can get all of his prolific prep games. You can get all of his EYBL footage.
Everything's accessible. But yes.
Of course, it would be nice to see him play 12 to 15 or however many G League Ignite games. But yeah, they're going to have footage on these guys. It is a different season, but I'm leaning towards this point. I just think now that they are going to have at least you would think a 20 to 25 game season or somewhere around there. And yeah, it'll be different, but I think they're still going to play games.
My thing is, at the end of the day, I just want to see a tournament.
Yeah. Oh, that would be really nice.
I want to get to one shining moment. I look forward to that all basketball season.
That was a unfortunate thing to miss this year.
Yeah. They couldn't even slap together a montage of just what we'd seen previously, but another story for another time.
Yeah, Jason, if you want to hear Luther Vandross sing One Shining Moment, YouTube, Spotify.
I listen to it on YouTube all the time, but I like to see current footage of the past season. That's just
Make
something
it yourself, man.
I'm very stuck in my ways on that. So coming in, we got someone who's the consensus number 3 on the RCI. Also the first kind of center, big guy.
Yeah.
Evan Mobley, he is committed to USC. Interesting situation.
Long considered one of the best players in this class. As far as draft perspective, he's still pretty high up. I think, like, to me, if we were talking about, he's another guy who born June 18th, 2001, I believe. Yep. He was somebody that I felt if he had reclassified, which he could have done, or, had the possibility of doing at least age-wise, he would have been, I feel like, my favorite for possibly being the number 1 pick this year. Like he's that good. He had a pretty disappointing senior season. Like he had a number of games. Like he obviously, anybody who's playing in high school who's a top player is likely going to dominate the high school competition. He didn't play a ton for Compton Magic this last summer. He was hurt. He made the U19 teams, didn't play a ton there either. He was hurt. He was at the October Junior USA minicamp team in 2019. I was a little disappointed just offensively. Like I just thought he would show me a little bit more there. But where he really stands out is he is like crazy mobile. He's great, like both laterally and in a straight line. He is 7 foot, and I don't know if he's reached 210 yet, but he's around there. He's still, strength is going to be an issue with him. 7'4" or so wingspan. They measured him at the last time I have measurements for him, he was measured with a 9-foot standing reach. I think that's definitely wrong. And he's probably like 9'2", 9'3", like just with those measurements, that would only make sense. And then, so he has an older brother, and he's another person whose father is an assistant coach.
He's an assistant coach at the University of Southern California, the very school that he signed to play for.
Indeed. And then, he has Isaiah Mobley there as well, who had a somewhat disappointing freshman season after he was in McDonald's All-American. But a lot like his brother Isaiah, Evan is a good passer, has ball skills, and like shows at least like some shooting potential. It's just still kind of in glimpses rather than on a consistent basis. The difference between the two Mobleys is Evan is a much bouncier athlete and just has a lot more vertical pop than Isaiah. Isaiah is a little bit bigger and stronger, but with Evan, I still think the thing with him is like as a modern center, if he does indeed shoot, which I think there's a possibility of that happening. So in 2018, when like that first day when he went up against James Wiseman and like you were seeing them side by side, like I thought Evan was the better prospect, like at least a better basketball player. Like Wiseman doesn't have that passing ability. Wiseman shot is another thing you kind of like are banking on it being a skill, but you're not completely sure. I think there's a lot to like about Evan, just in terms of also like defensive awareness and then ability to switch. Which
I think as a big coming into the Pac-12, I mean, it's a good chance to showcase some skill set because Pac-12 generally not the best. Like you're not going to see the best competition of other bigger players.
I don't know.
Centers, like I feel like
it depends on the year.
no, totally. But like right now, I feel like the Pac-12 is
not like last year they had like 3 freshman centers make the all Pac-12 team.
Yeah, but like they're all like kind of inconsistent in their own ways as well.
Yeah, but there were 3 of them. Come on, man. But they I guess we'll see. I feel like we still need to do our Pac-12 preview or whatever have you, but
as we get closer to the season, because we still have to figure out who's there, because always people. Sometimes there's some coming and goings before seasons.
Not like I think we're pretty.
It's pretty locked in, but we'll see. And also, like you see some buzz too, like once practices start.
I guess.
I mean, at least.
But yeah, either way, Evan Mobley, he's a very intriguing prospect, especially as a defender. I think a lot of people feel like he has like this switch potential, and he's at the very least like a good rim protecting drop big who it can like possibly switch out at times. There's versatility there with Evan. And then there also was a video of him on the beach doing a backflip in the sand, which like as a 7-footer is pretty insane.
That's a lot to flip over.
Yeah. But yeah, like, strength is a big thing with him. And you wonder if that was one of the reasons why he struggled at times, like when he had to guard a guy like Hunter Dickinson with the Matha, who's like 7'2", like 270. And, there were times this year where he didn't necessarily dominate like one would expect a player of his ranking to dominate. And it would have been really interesting to see if he would have, kind of stood out like James Wiseman did in the Hoop Summit last year, and just kind of show that. But yeah, there's still so much to like about him. He's going to be a fantastic rim runner, a threat to finish lobs, and he can do a little bit more than that. And I think there's some real basketball acumen with him as well, where he like, if he's not like a top 5 like lock, he's a guy that you are pretty certain is going to be in the lottery conversation and can get to that point of being like, a top half of the lottery guy.
Yeah, no, just depends on this college season if he puts a few things together.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on, we got somebody who's also going to play in the Pac-12.
Yes.
RSCI puts him at 6. He's kind of a little bit, got a few different ratings from 5, 4 to 8 is his lowest. But like the ratings are like whatever the point. Also, interestingly, great player. He's going to Stanford. Also, not the most famous player on his team because he had he got to play with another person with this.
I don't even know if he's the most famous like 2 players on his team.
Yeah, so we're talking about Zaire Williams. He played at Sierra Canyon, so he's playing with Bronny.
He's playing with Bronny. He's playing with BJ Boston, Brandon Boston Jr., who's going to Kentucky.
He's also playing with Zaire Wade.
Indeed.
He was a player of that.
Well, playing being a very operative word with Zaire Wade, unfortunately. But Zaire Wade's going to Brewster Academy. He's going for a post-grad year. And yeah, so with Zaire Williams, the big thing with him is he's 6'8". He's very slight. He's about 185 pounds with like a plus 2.5 or 3 wingspan. He is somebody who I think more than like being a knockdown shooter at this point just shows a lot of shot making potential and should be like a really interesting shooter moving forward. Stanford has like they have like a really interesting lineup. Like Oscar Da Silva isn't necessarily like the most like true center. I believe he's coming back, but they have Spencer Jones, who last year was one of the best shooting freshmen in the country. And then Zaire has some fantastic shot making ability. Didn't shoot exceptionally well in EYBL. He was at 28.8% from 3. His field goal percentage was 42.5, but 88% from the line on a pretty solid volume. And he has some ability to knock down shots. He was actually named, I believe, SoCal Player of the Year. He had played in SoCal before getting to Sierra Canyon.
Yeah, he was playing in Sherman. Yeah, he's playing at Notre Dame, which is like in Sherman Oaks. Yeah. Like also in this, Valley area.
Cool. He was. I think he actually was playing for Valley as opposed to Bayside. Moved to Bayside, but he. So he's at Sierra Canyon. He actually was deemed ineligible until December 29th of that year, so he didn't get to play until near the end of the year because of the transfer. Still ends up being considered like, maybe the guy on that team between he and BJ Boston. And I've never gotten to see Zaire play live, but what I've noticed with him is he has great positional size, exceptional shot maker, has some possible versatility, due to his size and if he puts on some muscle. And then a lot of potential is like a shooter and a finisher. And I think he's going to be a pretty big time scorer for Stanford next year, and was a huge get for them. Oregon was in the last little running with him as well.
Did Oregon didn't he have Kentucky? Like he had.
Oh yeah, he was. North Carolina was one too.
Yeah, because I think to me Stanford was a little surprising. I mean, I guess just based on like a little more recent history.
Yeah. Well, it was. I think it was like USC, Stanford, North Carolina, and
or was it Arizona?
Oregon. Yeah, like he had, I think Kansas might have been in there as well.
Kind of like stereotypical list, I guess.
He was getting recruited by Blue Bloods. Like he could have gone anywhere he wanted, and he chose Stanford. They're going to be a fun team. And Zaire is born September 12th, 2001. He, I think he needs a little work just in terms of like getting that base ready and the core, working on, just how streaky he is. I saw him in post-ups in the EYBL, he kind of struggled as well. And you just expect him to be able to use his size. Now people are kind of going away from the post-ups, but if he has that ability to use his size, if he's defended by smaller wing players, that could be a pretty big deal for him.
And you still see it at the end of
much more of a face-up guy.
But at the end of a lot of close games, I mean, you're seeing those one-on-one post-up. It still happens. It's not as big a part of like the NBA.
Well, if you're Anthony Davis, but yeah.
LeBron posts up too, though, and he hits that little fade.
He does. Like that's the fade is what he goes to on that.
Yeah, like Jimmy does it too a little bit. Like, I mean, it's just.
Oh yeah.
That's what the guys. It's isolation, and it's just.
Those guys are also like, built like exceptional tanks.
Oh, tanks, like totally, but it's just.
And Zaire Williams not exactly in that build, so you're kind of hoping him being more of like the movement shooter, and basically advantage creator. Not having to hit as many tough shots, but he can make a lot of tough shots, and that is what makes him. I think would have. I think at the Hoop Summit he would have been a guy that NBA people would have liked quite a bit, and I think he is somebody that the NBA people are very high on at this point, and moved well up the class through his junior and senior season.
Sweet. Well, moving on, we got someone he's ranked. 247 Sports has him as high as number 6. We see him as low as 24. Overall, RSCI 13. We have Caleb Love. He's committed to North Carolina. What are your thoughts on him as far as like a prospect and what he would kind of contributed to, the Hoop Summit?
I think as a prospect, he's a very intriguing guy. He's about 6'3". Right now in the they list him at 6'4" on the North Carolina site. I'm not necessarily buying that, but he they list him at 195 now, so very strong and looked strong the last time I had seen him live. Got to see him the last 2 years at October minicamp in 2018 and 2019. This past year as a senior, his team won the camp, and then he was one of the standouts there. Just one of the most consistent guys, able to play on and off the ball. Has a +6 wingspan, shows at least some potential as a finisher. It's not necessarily something that he's excelled at. Has some ability to create shots for himself as well. And I think the fact that he can play with a point guard or play as a point guard, he averaged 15.8 points per game for Brad Beal Elite, 4.6 rebounds, 5 assists, 3.5 turnovers per game, 1.8 steals per game. So was also creating events on defense. And he is somebody that I think raised his stock quite a bit over his last little time in high school. Was set to be a McDonald's All-American, and I believe it made Jordan Brand as well. And Caleb looks like a guard that you're pretty excited about. And
do you think it's trajectory of one and done, or like where do you kind of?
Yeah, I think right now he's firmly in that one and done area. It seems like he's a possible lottery pick and could move himself up there as well. As far as like shooting and everything, it seems like he's gaining consistency there. He will probably play quite a bit with another point guard, in RJ Davis, who is somebody else who's signed to North Carolina. But yeah, both of those guys, a little bit more shooting than North Carolina had last year. I think a little bit more consistency. And North Carolina had 4 guys that were set to be McDonald's All-Americans, by the way, and 3 guys who made the Nike Hoop Summit. And Caleb, to me, is the top one of those, or the top guy entering college and has a chance to be a one and done. He was at October minicamp this year. He was one of the most consistent players there, and to stand out amongst that group definitely showed something. And I believe the ESPN guys have him around 11 or so in the end of the lottery range.
End of that top, 10 to 15
for the 2021 draft.
Yeah, nice. Awesome. Well, moving on, we have someone committed to Gonzaga out of Minnesota.
Yeah.
Jalen Suggs. Also cool, super cool fact. He is second cousin Terrell Suggs, which is pretty awesome. If you're not a football fan.
I think he's a distant relative of Eddie Jones as well. But yeah, he
not on his bio, but I did see Terrell Suggs, which is pretty awesome. Hall of Fame football player.
Yeah. So
sure Arizona State is kicking themselves.
Another interesting fact about Jalen is he was one of the top-rated quarterbacks in all of high school football. So he could have been a dual sport athlete.
And then he goes to Gonzaga, a school that has no football.
Oh, what?
He goes to Gonzaga, a school that has no football. So
Well, obviously focused on hoops. He knows where his money's coming.
But no one's doing the Charlie Ward.
Yeah. He knows. He's focused on basketball for good reason. He's one of the best players in this high school class. He played a nationally televised game against Sierra Canyon. His school was Minnehaha. And Jason, what happened in that game? Jalen Suggs annihilated them. He had a fantastic game. I believe scoring in the 30-point range and looking great. He's really good at playing the passing lanes, a really good point of attack defender as well. And just solid athlete, really strong for his position. He's not exceptionally long. He's listed 6'4", 205, so really strong, but 6'5" and a half wingspan. So yeah, somewhere in the plus 1.5 to 2 range. But yeah, still really good size. Just kind of wondering if he's a primary initiator due to the big thing with him is whether he's a competent enough ball handler, but he's a great passer and has fantastic court awareness. He averaged almost he was, I think, a 2.4 to 1 assist to turnover ratio, 5.5 assists to 2.4 turnovers, 1.5 steals per game. He was with Grassroots Sizzle in Under Armour Association and averaged 20 points per game there and was great his last few years there. Even as a sophomore or a rising sophomore, he was playing U17s and putting up numbers. A really good athlete.
Also gets a lot of, guards like that, for Gonzaga. That's always a good.
For sure. I wonder if he's the highest rated guy ever to sign with Gonzaga.
Maybe since Austin Day.
As far as RSCI. Obviously, Gonzaga's had a few McDonald's All-American guys.
Yeah, I feel like Austin Day was kind of their highest for a while.
Yeah, I don't think Austin Day ever got up 7 though. Yeah,
was not a fan.
Yeah. I think Jalen Suggs, and it was rumored he was thinking of possibly going pro as well. He was a guy who I think they looked at for the G League
pathways. Yeah,
program.
Rod Strickland was doing some pretty heavy recruiting.
Yeah,
on a lot of those guys. But I think
G League Ignite program. Yeah, sorry. I thought there was a chance that Jalen Green or Jalen Suggs may never end up in college, but yeah, it seems like he's set to play for Gonzaga this year and should contribute right away. They lose a couple senior guards, and yeah, just has ability to guard either guard spot, move up, play on the wing. It should be a really smart player. Certainly has shooting potential, hasn't necessarily been like a knockdown guy, but he is somebody who I think has a lot to work with there, and should be an immediate contributor, and is a Gonzaga guy I expect to be a one and done.
Yeah, which is interesting. Yeah, because Mark Few doesn't get a ton of that one and done, but it's always
no. And then his teammate at Minnehaha, who I still believe could possibly go pro, but is set to I think announce his college pretty soon, is Chet Holmgren, who's one of the top players in the high school class of 2021. And there were also rumors that Chet might even reclassify and maybe like move up to this year. He would be within age range. And he so like with Suggs is like this kind of combo guard and like running the show at Minnehaha. Then you had this fantastic rim protector who can hit outside shots and has
like this stretch. Yeah,
they were a hell of a duo at Minnehaha. They have some other players there too, and yeah, like that was a team. But yeah, Jalen Suggs had some great performances in his last year there, and he is a possible lottery pick moving forward, and I think somebody that NBA people know very well.
Yeah, and I definitely think the West Coast, playing for Mark Few, West Coast Conference, really good chance to, kind of showcase. But coming up, we got
and they'll have some big matchups too in non-conference.
No, totally. Gonzaga always puts on a good schedule, which is awesome because they're not afraid of going anywhere and playing anyone. But coming up next, we got someone who's number 5 in the RSCI. He's someone you know very, very well. Committed to Florida State. We got Scottie Barnes. You've had a chance to see him quite a fear times. I think he was Les Schwab.
He was at Les Schwab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Les Schwab as well as like some USA stuff. So
yeah.
What are your thoughts on Scottie? Like, where do you think he's, kind of projecting towards?
Scottie is definitely, if you look at my work in NBADraft.net, you will see, and my other work that I did during the time where I was covering the events that I did, I've written a lot about Scottie, and I've talked a lot about Scottie. I am a irrationally huge Scottie Barnes fan. I still think that there's a great deal of NBA potential there as well. But yeah, let me tell you about Scottie Barnes. He is like 6'8". At Florida State right now, he's listed at 6'9". I still am not sure about that. He measured last summer, and like it had been kind of like a constant measurement where he was 6'6.5" without shoes, and then all of a sudden now he like grew an inch all of a sudden. But he's been in that 6'6.5" without shoes range for a while. I got to see at the last 3 USA basketball mini camps in October in Colorado Springs. Scottie was like my guy that first year in this class. He was my guy that second year, and he had a good year this year. He is still my guy. I interviewed him the day before he announced his college choice.
Sadly not Oregon, because we were in his final.
Pretty stoked about Oregon. He's pretty stoked. But yeah, he obviously going in on Monday in Denver and checking and seeing that he had announced for Florida State broke my heart a little. But it's a great place for him.
Well, there's nothing better for me than when you call me and tell me you got an inclination of something like that, and then I also have to see it the next day.
Man, I had other people, a guy I trust a lot, tell me that he still thought that he might go to Oregon. Oregon, I think, was right in the thick of things with him, but yeah, he ends up staying close to home. He's a Florida guy. Went to Montverde this last year, but had played at University School in Florida as well. Played all of his high school basketball in Florida, grew up in Florida. 6'8". I'm guessing around the 225 to 230 range. He's huge. 7'2" wingspan. The last measurement I have for him as far as standing reach, 9 feet. So Scottie, legit size, and he's like, I think people need to look at him because he has all of this ability as like a ball handler and is this tremendous passer. He is seen as almost like a wing, but I think you kind of need to look at him as like a 4-5. And then the fact is the offensive equity that he gives you with his ability to be this amazing passer and to have this versatility as a defender as well. Like the thing that you notice about Scottie Barnes when he's on the court, communication, intensity, leadership. But yeah, he's like just a great eye for the floor. The things that he needs to work on are very real. He's not the best scorer in a half-court offense. He is not really a reliable pull-up or spot-up shooter at this point. So those are big things, and those could affect where people see him as far as an NBA player. However, at Florida State, I think the really cool thing this year is he's likely going to be like a point forward kind of guy. And
do you think that's enough of a showcase for him? Like, you think one and done still, or do you think it's like he still has like a?
I think Scottie is a one and done no matter what.
That's just his inclination.
I think he's just a one and done. He has the NBA size. He has like there are still a lot to like about Scottie, even if he never shoots. Like he's a guy who I think like I know this sounds crazy because he still needs to kind of prove himself as like a rim protector. But he's not like this explosive athlete. He's a good athlete, not like a great one. But he has that size. And then this last year, they played a game against DeMatha. And whereas, Evan Mobley like had issues with Hunter Dickinson, Scottie played him really, really well. And so he has this ability to guard all these different people. And I think the fact is he basically played point guard in EYBL as well, and averaged 6.8 assists to 2.6 turnovers per game. Like in high school, he's averaging like a 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio.
Yeah,
like that's like kind of like unheard of for like a big guy,
Yeah, because usually they like to pass the ball to the other team.
Yeah,
like young guys, trying to. No, so that's a good skill set, and I think like the ability to really show off that like kind of 1 through 4. Play.
Yeah. And then maybe even like I don't think it's crazy in like a modern NBA. First off, I think you kind of view Scottie as a 4, and like then you have this guy who can like run the break and like pass it out, and you're confident with the ball in his hands to make the right decision as a 4. Like the Draymond Green comparisons are not like they're not crazy, and like that I think that's ultimately like what you would hope Scottie Barnes would do.
Yeah, like that's a best case scenario. But
yeah, and like yes, like the shooting is still a big concern. He shot in like the mid 60s as a free throw shooter in EYBL, but yeah, his shooting is still a very mixed bag, and he's not confident like shooting off the dribble very often. His jump shot definitely does not look pretty, but I still feel like this could be a time where he can at least show that. I've seen him hit mid-range jumpers, like it's not out of the realm of possibility. But yeah, like I think it's going to be a case where teams eventually play off of him and kind of force him to shoot. But otherwise, I just think he's too smart to fail. Like he's a really smart basketball player. There's just a lot to like there. Very coachable. He's somebody that I just really like as a prospect, despite these kind of like glaring weaknesses that could possibly.
If he's on the good.
But I still see him as a possible lottery guy.
If he's on the good list, he's on the good list. I mean,
oh, for sure, he's a player I love to watch.
And again, just someone to just root for, and just like as a person/player. Always cool to kind of have that. Coming up next, we're going back to the Pac-12, which is kind of cool. Pac-12 is getting some good people.
Yeah.
Coming
Pac-12
through.
has a few guys that made the Hoop Summit this year.
Yeah, which is like super exciting because they've had a few down years in recruiting. So we got Joshua Christopher going to Arizona State.
Yes, sir.
Out of Southern California. What are we getting with him?
You are getting buckets with Josh Christopher. He's a guy who scores in bunches.
2,700 points in high school. That's a pretty.
Yeah. In EYBL last year, he averaged 21.4 points per game, 5.2 rebounds, 5.2 assists, 3.7 turnovers per game. So he's not necessarily going to be somebody that you are expecting to run your offense through and still needs to work on decision-making, shot selection, but he is like an absolute tank. I don't know if you remember, his brother is Patrick Christopher, who played for Cal and was a really great player there. Josh has been somebody that I've seen the last 3 years at October minicamp, and this year getting a lot of buckets. And the shot, at least, it looked pretty good. It's been inconsistent, but it looked pretty good. But yeah, he's a terror in transition, and then like he uses his strength as a finisher, and then has the ability to basically score in isolation and create some shots for himself. So yeah, Josh is going to be a guy that is scoring immediately for Arizona State.
No, that's huge. And where do you think he projects as far as like NBA?
Yeah, that's the part you're not completely sure about, because he's more like a volume scorer than an efficiency guy. I still think that there's a chance he's a first-round pick, but there are definitely going to be things that he needs to tweak. And then the big thing is he didn't shoot very well from three-point range in the EYBL. If he proves that he's improved as a shooter, or at least shows good indicators there, then I think there's possibly a way that he can move up. But yeah, just too much strength and defensive potential. And I think that he is a guy that, like if he were in this draft and had played like this last year at Arizona State, I think he'd be somebody that teams would be pretty interested in, just because he has that body to possibly play on both ends. Around I'm guessing a 6'9" or so wingspan as well.
Yeah, and I think shooting mechanics, like if you have the ability to kind of have the base for it, I think that's huge too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, hopefully tears it up in the Pac-12. Like I'm hoping for a super competitive Pac-12 this year. I would love to see.
I'm hoping for a super competitive Pac-12 that's out of anybody playing the Oregon Ducks.
No, of course. But I want to see more than like 3 teams in the tournament.
Oh, for sure.
I miss the days when even in the Pac-10 and they're getting like 6 teams.
Well, last year we had no teams in the tournament, so.
Yeah, that was.
I think we would have gotten a few teams last year.
We tied a lot of other conferences for that. Yeah. But coming up, we have someone else out of Montverde.
Yeah.
Common trend. Going to North Carolina. Also, kind of a common trend. We got Day'Ron Sharpe, 6'10". They list him at about 246 pounds. I don't.
North Carolina listened to 265.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, Day'Ron is about 6 foot. They list him at 6'11", 265. I'm going with my North Carolina trend here and saying that they might be giving him an inch, but yeah, he's long. He showed some ability. Like it was crazy. He hit like a trail 3 when I was at USA Basketball, and this was the day I was sitting next to some NBA scouts, and they were like, whoa, like this guy's standing out to me. He's hit some shots around the basket too. And then, yeah, this year in Montverde, like he was a good player. Certainly a guy who can kind of protect that rim, score around the basket, give a little athleticism as far as running end to end. The one thing I did notice a little bit is when I watched him in person, I felt like he kind of tended to lose guys off the ball, tended to kind of ball watch and maybe could show a little bit better defensive awareness. He's not a guy I'm completely sure is a one and done guy. I know he's somebody that draft people certainly like, and the NBA people at the USA Basketball minicamp were like loving him the day I was there. The day I was sitting with them, and he was one of the guys that stood out because he has this tremendous frame. He already has like NBA ready size. It's just North Carolina is going to have a crowded front court.
I think once the front court gets crowded, it's super hard to break out for some of the freshmen that are coming in.
Sometimes. But yeah, and the other thing with Day'Ron is he hasn't necessarily shown like the consistency to be like this knockdown shooter or anything like that. He just hit this pull up 3, and people are like, the spot up, not pull up 3, the spot up 3, and people were like, oh wow, like this guy is looking good if he can do that and score close to the basket. But yeah, I'm still not necessarily calling him like a stretch big or anything like that. I think that's something that he'll need to prove, and I don't think that's necessarily like part of his wheelhouse, especially looking at his numbers in Adidas. But yeah, he is going to get you offensive rebounds, and he's going to be a big, strong player who plays pretty hard. And Yeah, I think it's going to be tough to keep him off the floor for North Carolina this year. I think he might be their most intriguing pro big. But yeah, they will have their two starters back from last year, Armando Bacot and Garrison Brooks, and they have a player that we will mention later, and then Sterling Manley is back. So yeah, they're pretty crowded front court. The worst part about all of those guys, and like maybe you can say Garrison can play the four, but all of those guys' best positions seem to be center. So that's what makes North Carolina's spacing.
I think
really
in college
tough.
too, a lot of guys like rotate, like roll up to that center.
Yeah.
Too, like stronger, bigger guys. So it's be interesting to see. I mean, always an intriguing front court at North Carolina. Moving on, we got guard Adam Miller from Chicago, committed to Illinois.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on him, as far as what he's bringing? I mean, his ranking is a little bit not as consistent, but I mean,
yeah, he was the lowest ranked guy that made Team USA. I felt like when he was at the October minicamp, he played really, really well next to Caleb Love. Like he and Caleb Love were playing off of each other really well. Like Caleb could bring the ball up. Adam Miller could bring the ball up. I think Adam Miller is going to be playing a lot off the ball. But I still think he's going to get immediate minutes at Illinois. He is playing next to somebody who will likely play a lot of minutes at point guard and would have probably been a returnee to the Hoop Summit, and that's Andre Curbelo from Puerto Rico. And he is the guy that you kind of expect to run point there for Illinois. And Ayo Dosunmu is back, so he'll be playing quite a bit too. But I think they'll play a lot of 3-guard lineups. Like you'll have to with those three guys. Adam Miller is a lefty, was knocking down shots when I was there, and seems to be one of his calling cards. Can make like the skip pass with his left hand really well. So yeah, has a little ability to play point of attack defense as well. So he I feel he's not necessarily like an out of this world athlete, but he has a little strength to him too. I know they list him on the website there at 172. I think he's a little bigger than that now. 6'6" wingspan. You're just not sure he's like a true point guard, but he's somebody that can play off the ball. And I'm expecting him to shoot fairly well and provide a offensive kick for Illinois, and hopefully guard the one or the two at times.
And then maybe just in college, couple years, marinate the game.
Yeah.
Then go into because it doesn't seem like.
Yeah, I'm not super confident on him being a one and done. I think that he was ranked there after USA basketball minicamp, but I believe that that's been pulled back a tad based on other players playing better and like the depth of this class. But yeah, I think he's certainly somebody that is a guard to watch this coming year and should have an immediate impact in college.
Sweet. Well, moving on, we got our only Duke player. So
surprising.
Yeah, which is like interesting.
They have a pretty deep recruiting class.
Yeah, which is interesting too, because usually you see a pretty good number there. We got Jeremy Roach, guard. What's your take on what he's going to bring to Duke, and then hopefully what do you think about NBA prospects? I know he got hurt as a junior ACL, but I mean obviously came back.
Yeah, came back and I think played really well. Has been a valuable player in EYBL for Team Takeover the last little while, and he's a guy that his physical tools are, I think, the least impressive of anybody on this team. He's 6'2", 6'3" wingspan, 180 pounds, but good athlete, smart player. I think is going to play quite a number of minutes at Duke. They have another guard who was at the USA Basketball Main Camp. Jeremy Roach was at USA Basketball Main Camp this past year, but did not play in the scrimmages because he was still recuperating from that injury. But yeah, he's somebody who I think you kind of worry about him shooting and wonder how he's going to do there. You wonder about his physical size, but there's athleticism there. There's good decision making. he is a guy that I think you're going to be pretty confident with the ball in his hands, and he's going to do a lot of good things. And as far as like his high school career in general, like at Paul Six, like this guy has played big minutes for a big high school program for like a number of years. I think was great in the DMV area this last year, and was like, I think won player of the year with multiple publications around that very good basketball area. And he's somebody that I expect to get minutes right away at Duke.
Yeah, especially Trey Jones moving on.
Yeah.
So, it kind of opens up definitely some time in the backcourt. So hopefully a good opportunity. And I mean, ACC is always some, good chances to showcase. What are you thinking for him as far as NBA draft? Do you think more?
I think he's a guy who plays a few years in college.
Yeah.
Like Duke has a few guys who I think could be one and done. I think he was added to this team because they knew him from Team USA. He was not going to give them like he could play at this level of competition, and just would have been a nice guy to plug in there for a few good minutes. But yeah, likely wouldn't have been like one of the standouts of the camp, but or the week at Hoop Summit. But I think still a player that you monitor because he has legitimate NBA upside down the line.
Yeah, no, totally. Like I think there's nothing wrong with like spending a few years in college, and then coming out when you're physically ready.
Yeah.
So final player, last guy, we kind of foreshadowed him a little earlier. He's the final North Carolina. So 3 North Carolina players in this. So obviously that was a reason for you being called in for Inside Carolina, because obviously they have a lot at stake in this game of just wanting that intel and wanting to know. We're talking Walker Kessler, another addition to the front court as well. They probably list him at like 7'1", 7.
Yeah, so he's I think like legit 7-foot guy, 7'4" wingspan, 245, can step out and shoot a little bit like that. I think that's one of his calling cards. Good around the basket. Has an NBA and basketball pedigree. His uncle Alec Kessler played in the NBA. He had a father that played basketball, I believe, at Georgia. I think his family had a long line at Georgia, and I think they might have been possibly in the running for him, but decided to go to North Carolina.
Yeah, go out of
very crowded front court. And Walker was not at the USA Basketball minicamp. I have not gotten to see him play live yet. From what I have seen, certainly seems pretty talented offensively. Seems like the size obviously is pretty big, where he'll be kind of like that drop coverage big and somebody you want defending the rim, but not necessarily like a prolific shot blocker either. But yeah, I think just based on his size, and then he has it's not like he's a super athlete, but he's at least pretty fluid for a big guy, and will provide some offense. He's somebody who I think should get minutes and should at least have some production on North Carolina as a freshman, but is somebody that I really think is a multi-year guy, especially as you're kind of trying to figure out exactly where he fits in as an NBA player.
And then working your way into the front, working your way into that front court too.
Exactly. Like, with his ability to defend NBA centers and possibly, we mentioned last week, like there aren't going to be a lot of guys that can switch out and everything like that, but drop bigs who are like single position defenders, it's getting tougher and tougher for them, especially if they're not necessarily like have the speed or athleticism where you're comfortable with them doing that.
Oh, totally. Because you see in some of these, you'll see like
multiple positions.
A whole playoff series you're not going to play. A player that the rest of most of the regular season starts for you. Every gamer is getting big minutes. So definitely that versatility is becoming super, super important. And then what are some other guys in the class of 2021 that you think like that's have some intrigue as far as the draft is concerned? Just keep an eye on it. Early tab, still ways to go.
So I felt like the standout guy. I'll give a few guys that I saw at USA Basketball in October, and maybe a couple guys who weren't there. I thought that Greg Brown would have made this team. Greg Brown is pretty much a power forward, and he's pretty slight, but he jumps completely out of the gym. Like, he's a crazy athlete. He's going to be like one of the, I would think, like leading dunkers in college basketball this next year. Should definitely finish above the rim very often, which, gives him some rim protection potential as well. You hope that he eventually can shoot, and the shot at least doesn't look terrible. But yeah, he's not necessarily somebody that you're getting a lot of offense from, like just in like breaking down the defense or anything like that. But he is somebody who, the first day, I felt like once I got to Colorado Springs, he was doing all right. But then by that last day when they had the finals, he was killing it. Like, that guy was just finishing everywhere, making shots close to the hoop. Yeah, he's an exciting athlete. So with that athleticism and, a base to kind of add some strength, he's not exceptionally long or anything like that, but yeah, he's a really exciting player. And then I thought his like barrage of athleticism would have gotten him a spot on the team. He's going to Texas, and I thought he was a prospect to potentially go G League Elite as well. But yeah, he should be a one and done guy. Just kind of refining his game is going to be the real key there. Another guy who I felt was one of the best players at USA Basketball minicamp this past year, and was like somebody that I had not seen up to that point, but is now getting a ton of draft buzz, is Keon Johnson. And he's going to Tennessee. He is like, they listed him at 6'4". I think he's about 6'5", but either way, like he's a really good wing. He can defend. He is a very fluid athlete. He showed some passing acumen. He showed some shooting potential. To me, he was one of the best players at USA Basketball. I think one of the big reasons he didn't make the Hoop Summit team was he was injured during his last year in high school, so he only played 5 games. I think he absolutely annihilated those games. Was playing well in Adidas, and I think is kind of underranked because of the way that his high school career ended. Did not make the McDonald's All-American team, I believe, just because of his only playing a certain number of games during his senior year. But he's one of the most intriguing guys. Another guy from Tennessee who's very intriguing is Jaden Springer. He is one of the best defenders in this class, one of the youngest players in this class, born in September 2002. And he didn't really play at USA Basketball either, and it kind of, I guess, had a tentative relationship with USA Basketball. But he did show up to the camp. He just didn't play there. But yeah, like great strength, really good point of attack defender, shows potential as an offensive player too, and should get a lot of minutes at Tennessee right away. And then another player who I really liked at USA Basketball, who I thought had a chance to make the team, was another Duke guard, and his name is DJ Stewart, and he played for Whitney Young out of Chicago, Illinois.
Yeah.
And he I really liked his shot, very pretty shot. It has the ability to play off the ball, make pull-up jump shots. Also, like, really quick, could get into the lane. You're not exactly sure about him, like, as your primary handler or point guard, but he was a guy that I just really grew to like at that USA Basketball October minicamp. Some players who didn't show up to the minicamp who I want to mention as well, who were just some of the top players possibly for the 2021 draft. VJ Boston, he's heading to Kentucky. Just a lot of ability there, like a plus. He's like 6'5" with like around a 6'10 and a half, 6'11" wingspan. Very shifty, like has a lot of potential as a ball handler, potential as a passer, as a finisher, and defensive potential. So he's one of the more intriguing players, and somebody who basically people are saying might be like a potential top 5 pick and the best player to head to Kentucky this next year in a pretty talented recruiting class. And then Jalen Johnson was somebody who was initially at IMG, ends up going back to Nicollet, where in Wisconsin, where he's from. And he is like, there are lots of parallels with Scottie Barnes in that he's like 6'9" or so. Not as lengthy or anything like that, but a better athlete, better finisher around the rim. He so great passer, great ball handler, finishes around the basket really well. Lots of questions about him as a shooter, and that's going to be like a huge factor with him and just how high he ends up going. But certainly a lot of talent, and because that combination of size, athleticism, and passing ability, and like I saw his numbers at Nicollet, and like his finishing around the basket was amazing. His shooting, I think he was like 4 for 25 from 3 or something along those lines. Like wasn't really working, and then also like around like 50% from the free throw line. So indicators not necessarily there, but talent very much there.
So how would you kind of rank this class? You think this is like a pretty deep, strong?
Yeah, I think it's strong. I think there's a lot of potential there, and I think guys are going to come in, and there are going to be fewer variable concerns with this group of freshmen than there were with this past group of freshmen.
Nice. That's like, it's good. It's good because, yeah, we're going to see a smaller college season, but hopefully we see a jam-packed college season of some good players coming through. And obviously, hopefully 2021 draft happens at its normally scheduled time, so we don't have to wait too long between drafts because, yeah.
Will probably happen whenever like the season ends, and I'm guessing that.
Yeah.
It might be a little later than normal, but yeah, hopefully a little earlier than this past year.
Well, I guess, like the bright side is like better, more exciting names to talk about and more exciting sort of scenarios or players, in situations you can kind of envision. And then any other thoughts on this class as far as like sleepers or international guys that could come into the draft that aren't going to college or aren't, kind of on that?
The big one is Usman Garuba, and he plays for Real Madrid. He, like much like Luka Doncic, not comparing the two, just comparing the age, and like Usman as a young player was already getting minutes on Real Madrid. And I believe even like played with Luka Doncic. Like, so yeah, he's eligible for the 2021 draft. A lot of defensive potential, fantastic body, great athleticism, really good passer. The potential as a pick and roll defender and just a defender in general, and his instincts on that end of the floor. Really good close to the basket as well. The big concerns with him are shooting, and we'll see just how well he ends up playing this next year. But he's already been a rotation guy on Real Madrid and done very well. So he's somebody that is going to be very interesting. Now, as far as I wanted to talk a little bit about some guys who would have been on the international team for the Hoops America, or the World Team, as they call it. And one guy who I was very excited to see, but unfortunately, due to the game's cancellation, was not there, Paolo Banchero. And Paolo Banchero was somebody who was at the 2018 USA October minicamp, had tried out for Team USA before. His mother, or no, I guess his father, has Italian ties, and he is set to play for Italy moving forward. So he was going to play with the Italian men's senior national team this summer, and had given out vibes that he was going to be a world team selection. He's one of the top players in the high school class of 2021. He's out of the state of Washington. He committed to Duke not too long ago, and he is a very talented scorer. He was one of the best players in EYBL last year in summer of 2019. Exceptional passer, has a great ability as a post defender, and player just I enjoy watching quite a bit. Like really strong, about 6'10", and I'm guessing in the 240 or 250 range. So already like grown man's body. I think he's going to do amazing things at Duke. And yeah, like he and AJ Griffin might be like the two best NBA prospects in that high school class. And then another player who's a really good prospect in that class, Patrick Baldwin, is also set to go to Duke. So they might have like the three best incoming prospects. We'll see. Like, we'll see how the rankings turn out and how they turn out as prospects. But yeah, three very exciting prospects possibly heading to Duke, two that we know of who are intending on going to Duke. Jonathan Kuminga, who reclassified late, but he is a really exciting prospect as well. Like fantastic athlete, plays really hard, shows flashes as a passer, shows flashes as a shooter, just kind of needs to put all of that together. Not necessarily like the best indicators as a shooter either. But yeah, still somebody that is very intriguing, about 6'7", 6'8", with like a 6'11", 7-foot wingspan. So yeah, he's somebody that I think G League Ignite is very excited about as well. And he could be a possible top 5 pick in next year's draft. Like I think early returns would probably have him around there. And I know another player, there were a couple players that I think would have returned. Andre Curbelo, who is a really good point guard prospect, just finds ways to get into the paint. Excellent passer. I compared his body. He kind of looked like Captain America before. He has this like big head and like kind of tinier body, but man, like he plays much bigger than his size. Really smart player. Has like the ability to make these like great touch shots around the rim as well. Shooting is the big question mark with him, but yeah, he showed some really good things last year. I think he would have come back representing Puerto Rico. M.A. Moncrief, Matthew Alexander Moncrief was a Canadian representative last year, showed some really good things as an athlete. We'll be playing with Cade Cunningham at Oklahoma State. And I think he's a likely multi-year guy, but some good physical and athletic characteristics, like some nice footwork around the basket. Shooting is going to be the big question mark, but I think he has some defensive potential. So he would have been a guy that I could have seen coming back. And then a player who I think was also set to go for the world team was Makur Maker. Apparently was supposed to play for the world team as well, representing either South Sudan or Australia. And he is set to go to Howard. He is a legit 7-footer, about 230 pounds. Apparently, I think like a 7'3" wingspan, like 9'2" standing reach, somewhere around that range. Would have been great to get those world team measurements from the Nike Hoop Summit that I covet every year, and they at least do those. And then like hand sizes and other cool stuff too. But Makur Maker, I think would have made an appearance, and he'll get a chance to show what he can do at Howard. I haven't had a chance to see him a lot live, but certainly there seems to be some talent there. And like 7-footer that can possibly stretch the floor and score around the basket. You have some hope there.
No, totally. And obviously, cousin of Thon. So it's like
cousin of Thon and Matur.
Sure, yeah. So, coming out
and then more makers to come. Like they're still not done. They have high school prospects still in the running. Yeah.
Okay.
They run deep.
Yeah, like I thought that was pretty good. I mean, like getting 3 people kind of on that radar, but
yeah,
the more the merrier. If you can do it, why not?
Yeah. So yeah, that's so that was just a kind of a rundown. If there's a thing to know,
just gets the gears thinking of 2021 as well. Just getting mindset of looking at these guys, like what they bring and like what that draft could look like.
Yeah, hopefully we gave you a little insight into some of these players and some of the prospects to look forward to this coming year, and an idea of what the USA would have had at the Nike Hoop Summit this past year.
Hey, and who knows? Maybe they'll, come together for a fun exhibition game sometime, but probably not.
Guessing no.
I'm guessing no. But, hopefully Hoop Summit can come back in 2021.
2021, we are crossing our fingers.
Cross our fingers, because this is, again, these are just great chances for fans.
It's a wonderful week.
Yeah.
I've met some of my best friends in basketball at that event.
Yeah, and I think it's just like to me, it's also like a game where I've seen a lot of, certain international guys, especially for the first time, or heard about them, and then things that put them on the map. I'm thinking like Dante Exum, Dennis Schroeder, just guys like that really, have had a great chance to showcase and kind of build that buzz before they come in the NBA. For even for more casual fans.
We'll have more Hoops on the stuff because I love talking about it, and it's a wonderful week, and it was a real bummer not to be able to go this year, but I have a couple cool things on the horizon that hopefully we'll talk about. We'll talk about the end of the NBA Finals next week.
Yeah, by our episode next Wednesday, there will be an NBA champion.
Indeed.
So it's
Tuesday at the latest, right?
Yeah, well, that's why we record usually Tuesday nights. So it's like we're gonna have a champion. We're gonna break that down. We're gonna bring you some more stuff, and then we'll project towards that off season as well. Start college basketball previews. There's a lot still happening in the world of basketball. As they say, basketball never stops. 100% true. But we appreciate you guys taking the time to come listen. Don't forget. Subscribe, like, share, pass it on to your friends, family, coworkers, enemies, frenemies, anyone. Spread the love, spread the good word, spread the gospel of Viseland. We definitely appreciate all the love. Anything else for you, Mikey?
Review. That's a big one. And review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. We really appreciate that. Comment. If you have any questions for us, viselandpod@gmail.com. I am NBA Draft Mikey V. He is at J Visenberg. If you want to find both of us on Twitter, we will be at Viseland. We'll have a fun poll up for you, and we'll definitely have something going on there. We want to do more of those because I think they're going around to people. And
democracy is great. Let's see what the people think. No electoral college on our polls.
Let's call it Twitocracy. Twitocracy. Yeah. And let's not go is great. It's fine. But we
you go to one click to votes. We count all your votes. We don't wait them out. So you get your chance to really speak.
And we really appreciate all of the support that you've given us as Viseland listeners, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much.
Everybody.